Alright, time to play the last Prince of Persia game. What? No, not this! Why, Ubisoft, why? Anything but this! In 2010, Ubisoft released a Prince of Persia game to tie in with the movie Sands of Time. The thing is, there's a lot of ports of it. No, they're not really ports. They're more like its own series, as all the versions are different games. There's the one I'm playing, which is the PC, PS3, and 360 version, a Wii version, a PSP version, and even a DS version. I only played the main PC and 360 version and the Wii version, and let me tell you, the Wii version is a much different story, but I'm not talking about that one, so let's start playing. No, not fucking Uplay. I honestly don't understand why Ubisoft pushes us with this crap. It's fucking useless, as when you try to launch a game through Uplay, it just launches through Steam anyway. It's sad when you make Origins seem like gold with this. In any case, if you're not connected to Uplay on PC, you can't play this game, which is total bullshit. This time, Ubisoft returns to the Sands of Time franchise, so you can manipulate time again! Hooray! It takes place between Sands of Time and War Within, and is about the prince learning true leadership, even though he doesn't really learn that until Two Thrones. You start this game with an over-glorified CG cutscene, then you come across environments that seem familiar. Huh, it's just like Sands of Time. Must be a coincidence! After you see the kingdom being invaded by the enemy, the prince makes his way trying to catch up with Malik and learns that the battle is leading to defeat, which makes Malik use the last resort of unleashing Solomon's army, which just happens to be made out of sand.
Don't touch it.
It is only sand. What is...
The prince and Malik get the halves of the seal, and not long after, the prince finds himself in a drugged dreamland again. Here, the prince meets Razia, a djinn who tells him that the only way of stopping the army is by getting the other half of the seal, and also gives him special powers, which happens to be rewinding time. Rewinding time works in a weird way, so you usually end up rewinding more than you want to. The combat in this game, however, is almost like playing a Dynasty Warrior game. You usually fight like 15 or 30 enemies at once, and the combat is a button masher. There is a purpose in killing a lot of enemies this time, though. After 4 games, Ubisoft finally decided that an upgrade system would be a good idea. You get experience by killing enemies and finding these sarcophaguses and destroying them. Is there some sky in there? Who cares? They give you a shit ton of XP. The upgrade system allows you to get 4 new powers, health, and these tank upgrades, strength, and even upgrade every one more time. I didn't think the last one was necessary, but I guess some people are terrible at climbing in this game. The climbing in this game is amazing, as it combines the last game and the previous game, as now you can wall run even if you're on a ledge. You can't crawl on the ceiling like last time, but at least you're not humping poles as much this time. In previous games, these poles killed the flow, but now you can jump in any direction regardless which side you're at. A bit later in the game, you get the ability to freeze water. This basically means that it added more timing-based climbing, as the water can go on and off, and so you have to time it right when you freeze water. Sometimes this is used rather creatively, like in the Astrolabe section. That puzzle seems familiar. Later, you even get the power to sonic attack your enemies. The last power you get is the power to open tears. Use Razia's memories of the place to form past legends that are in ruins because the place is abandoned. You know, the controls for this game on the keyboard can really kill your pinky. You freeze water with shift and sonic attack with control. You also open tears with alt. This is really tough for tiny basic platforming, and your pinky will start to really hurt after a while because you're moving it so much towards the end. There's puzzles in this game, but as always, they're really simple. You know, some of these puzzles are familiar. Okay, if it isn't clear yet, this game borrows some of the themes of previous games. For example, this is from Two Thrones, this is from Warrior Within, and I've already shown some examples of Sands of Time. I can see why this can cause a problem as it causes identity crisis, but this game doesn't look all that bad with these sections, so I don't really have a problem with it. Nowadays, I can only say that this game looks alright. Was it that great looking for its time? Well, okay, not long before this game was released, Final Fantasy XIII was released, and for how much of a garbage that game is, it was the best looking game at the time. Compare that with Forgotten Sands, and I think people thought the game didn't look that great. That's a shame, but the only problem I have with the graphics are the enemy design. They look generic and bland and lacks any creativity. They might as well be zombies. The story in this game is most of the time non-existent, as you're just chasing Malik half the time, or it's just not interesting at all. As the game goes on, you will encounter Irift. No, not that one. This one. I know it looks pretty bad, but he's kinda like the Haka from Warrior Within. He blows up stuff and you have to run away from it. Irift becomes much more important later on. As the game progresses, Malik goes insanely power hungry and refuses to seal the army. Later, you've slayed the Irift Vartosh, which breaks Malik's half of the seal, making it impossible to seal the army, and Malik slowly becomes Vartosh. After this, you have to find a mythical sword, sound familiar, to truly defeat the Irift. When you get the sword, Razia merges with the sword. This is an important in another Forgotten Sands game, effectively gaining the one-shot kill enemy weapon in the game. When you finally get to Vartosh, you get the epic final boss with a huge glowing hit me sign on his medallion. This boss is the easiest thing ever. The bosses in this game aren't that great to begin with, but this one takes it to another level. After you beat him, the prince finds Malik dying, telling the prince that he will become a great leader one day. The characters in this game are rather weak. They're pretty generic, one-dimensional, and says nothing really interesting. This can really hurt the game if you're not expecting the most painfully boring characters out of the series. At least the voice acting is fine. Following the Sands of Time, the music is pretty forgettable and is non-existent. The pause screen music and the title theme is the only thing I remember out of its hour-long soundtrack. In conclusion, the best thing out of this game is the gameplay, and that's what matters the most to me. The other stuff is just average, and the game itself is pretty short. And not that difficult, but that might just be me, since I played all these games in a row. After this, Ubisoft never made a new Prince of Persia game again. I guess they were too busy making 1 million new Assassin's Creed game every year. Oh well. Next time on the Radiant Wanderer show will be a countdown of my favorite Prince of Persia games. And it will be a countdown like no other.